Oh, hello. Welcome back to the Funk Treatise, 5th edition, and the readings of. Today we have Kevin Burnett Jr. reading pages 201 through 210. Once again, Kevin, thank you so much for reading these pages and sharing your thoughts. And without further ado, let us begin.
Hello, I am Kevin Burnett, and we'll be reading pages 201 to 210 of The Funk Became Portal. So let's begin. I will also be looking over here to read, just a heads up.
Thanks.
So let's begin. The Funk Became Portal. They have a link description here. To you, I am your GLADOS, genetic life form and disk operating system, and you are my Chell, and vice versa. And in Portal 2, we are now Wheatley, Stephen Merchant, and Aperture founder Cave Johnson, J.K. Simmons. In this new cooperative mode, players solve puzzles together as robots, Atlas and Peabody, both voiced by D. Bradley Baker. Jonathan Colton and the National produced songs for the game. We are all of this and what is not. So now we are all experiencing this test, and the cake is and isn't a lie just as we know it to be. Just as the constructed data behind its formula tells us, it will be and guides us towards the eventual release or not of Portal 3 or some other puzzle game that you purchase at the experience store, and then you download that experience into your container until you want or need the next release for whatever reason.
So, kind of what I mean by that is like we're each the testers and the test subjects in the funk, right? We're all working together uh, for some purpose, whether that purpose just be to simply exist, right? Um, and so we're all experiencing this test, and the cake being a lie, uh, or is not a lie, is basically kind of our motivation into doing something. Um, Whether we receive that reward or not is different for each of us, um, depending on what reward that is or what your motivation is.
Okay, going on to the next. It says, now that we are also aware as artificial intelligent NPCs and humans and conscious RAM, that information can connect with each other and learn more from it to complete the game. Or get bored and stop interacting with the ideas being presented and move on blind, or keep going forever until you know me, 1200% plus, and IU 1200% plus, or 50-50, or so complexly that you are now me as we are we. Or you can run over me with a car and take my belongings that are able to be gathered in that container. However you choose to selfishly experience your selfless gain, but if you choose to kill an NPC, it's not going to be as much of completing the whole experience, because then that container can no longer assist you. But you, as the current container, know it does and doesn't matter, and beyond that much closer as I do. You will and won't make these decisions, but personally I would hope that eventually, even if the reality like video games, that we choose not to destroy each other and attempt to complete the game or the funk together.
So, kind of what I mean there is like, um, now that we've reached this far, we're just going to continue moving forward and evolving into what we become, right? depending on how we choose to work together or not work together. Um, and so now that we're all, in a way, NPCs as well as each a main character, uh, in a video game, like let's use Grand Theft Auto for example, which is kind of what I was referencing here. Like, there's a bunch of NPCs that just walk around and don't really do much. They kind of interact with each other, uh, but they're basically just like kind of background things. And so you don't feel as guilty when you run over one of these guys or uh, murder them with a numerous amount of weapons or things. And then they drop whatever they were containing, right? Like, usually it's money or something like that, sometimes another weapon or so. And so when you extend that to like real life, uh, or even like, let's take another game. Like, let's say that you're in another game or even life, uh, and you take, and there's one of these NPCs that like has a quest that is supposed to carry you further in the game, but you kill them. Normally, like in most games, they have safeguards against that. That you can't take out characters that are integral to the game's story. But in reality, you can. You can do that. I mean, you shouldn't, but the option's there. Uh, it's different because one is a game, one is real life. But who's to say that killing an NPC isn't real life for them, and you're just kind of this non-caring, nonchalant god controlling all the fates within this surreality. Um, and you will and won't make these decisions. And so, just like I say at the end, though, personally, I would hope that eventually, even if in a reality like video games, we choose not to destroy each other and attempt to complete the game or the funk together.
Moving on. I'm going to go to sleep now. Thank you, everyone here, for your participation in this experiment. I will either connect again with you at some other point in time. For you, in that patience, it may seem like I am gone for a longer time than you are interested in, and that you are able to exist along with. So if you're no longer here, when I gain to when I again reach out to you, I understand if you are now only able to access me again across the future funk and then use that information to build, form, expand, evolve, and multiply your next container of transport, transfer experience, and communal past, present, and future understanding of my collectible data of this experience can be observed and experienced again through my dissertation and dissection of the funk by reaching out to me at hudafunkband@gmail.com. Good night. Love you.
And I believe that concludes the 4chan forum. I believe. But what I'm saying here is like, whatever we leave behind when our physical containers are gone, or expired, or taken out, or whatever, we leave behind the limited supply of what we leave behind. Whatever our containers, we're collecting, or whatever we had stored in other places and everything, uh, that's all you can interact with now. And so, like, eventually, when I'm dead and gone, you'll have these videos, you'll have the treatise itself, unless those are gone somehow. Um, and you'll only be able to interact with them in the way that you can just watch and form your own opinions. But right now, while I'm still here, you can reach out and we can discuss this actively and live. Um, and so that's kind of what I mean by like the power within that. Like, you can reach out to me and we can expand it within this game together, or you can try to take me out of it, but then I won't be able to help anyone or anything anymore. Uh, and then you do whatever you do with that. And so one of those is subjectively more positive than the other.
Moving on. Monday, December 9th, 2019. Susan Brooks. I read this through several times. I still think that some caps and stems are required to grasp it. But what you're referring to as the funk, I would refer to as consciousness, which we all collectively share, may be more interestingly linked than science currently suggests. I also think that you're ascribing traits to that, personified traits that don't need to be there. Monday, September 14th, 2020. These unnecessary examples are important because they are how I have become and are becoming aware of how to further describe my and other perceptions and experience of how the funk is revealed to us, and how to attempt to personally explain it to each other. Everything so that the present future is able to expand from it. Absolutely, it is different to each of us and seems superfluous, but is extremely necessary to everyone and everything, and it is important that we interpret our perceptions of those events of varying important situations, experience, and perspectives, or not. Regardless, this information, whether true or false, necessary or not, now exists and is affecting our reality on some level. And I am presenting this information so that it can be edited, expanded upon across time. Have you read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? He touches on some of these ideas too, just different words. If our species manages to survive our environmental crisis, I think this era of history might be known as the Second Great Awakening. But I also fail at putting those thoughts into words, to find ways of painting the picture of how all life is connected, to get the meaning out of my head, across the space between us, and into our head. Words do not necessarily always convey the meaning they are desired to express, and thus we are limited by them in discussion. Thus, I will end up personifying more than I intend in an effort to convey those thoughts. Moving on. Consciousness is just sitting there behind our eyes, observing our existence. It can only really pay close attention to one thing at a time, and our body is throwing all kinds of info at it. My back hurts. I have an itch on my forehead. The temperature with this blanket is comfortable. My blanket feels soft. My legs feel soft. I can hear my breath rushing through my nose. Sometimes it notices thoughts drifting across my mind, the nature of which is about the present physical sensation. Sometimes the contents of those thoughts are about the future, sometimes the past, and those thoughts carry with the emotional weight that impacts the body. Especially when you're caught up in the story and the content of your thoughts, the collective consciousness wants to know that if it's to be for one person's experience isn't enough. It's got to know life from various perspectives, all perspectives, to understand the experience. Each of us is like another little program on a massive computer trying to solve the question of what it means to be alive. The answer will not be able to be put into words as it's too limiting. I hope some of this makes sense. It probably doesn't.
No, it makes good sense. I am able to make sense of what you were saying, and I agree with everything that you're saying. And so, what I am, I guess, proposing is, since we kind of know that words limit us in the in translation, right? That's where I'm trying to challenge us in the attempt to pair ability to continue to move beyond words to where we can understand each other beyond language, um, in an attempt to, again, reach pairability. Um, and so, yes, I think what you are stating here uh, is an apt description of what it means to feel within funk. And then the difficulty of how it is to share that information and translate it to each of us, because yes, we personify it, and each of our personification is entirely different and subjective. We have some relations and everything, um, but it's very easy to be misunderstood just through uh, this right here, through this communication. I can't ever be sure that you are getting a complete understanding of what I mean, and you probably aren't. You have some knowledge and understanding, I'm sure, uh, but you don't have my understanding. You have your own. But that is the importance of all of this. When we combine all of those perspectives into a greater picture, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a greater picture, a greater understanding. And right now, we're just we are developing that ability of working together, but it's also kind of being at the same time used against us, um, because we're human. And so my goal is to kind of help move us forward into ways that we can help each other.
Sean
And not just understand this, but understand each other and everything.
Penelber. Susan, what you are saying and attempting to process and describe tells me that you're indeed further understanding the theory I am proposing of the funk. Everything you said and are feeling further confirms my study as well as it does not, as it's still not a complete answer or how to describe that answer or question to yourself, to others and everyone and everything. You are now observing the funk and are studying with me after being proposed an idea that is still under great research and now expanding across myself to you and everyone and everything else now processing what I am proposing. Calculation is now in further advancement and will continue to expand until it reaches back into itself and plants the idea of further advancement of knowledge of itself and others into the next container or vessel of experience. Thank you for attempting to make sense of what you and I are saying. That is what it's all about. And you understand that it's a lot to say, think, or type, but now that we are connected to each other and to computers, that you can easily calculate and process that information. We are indeed on the next level of conscious advancement and moving further. We can now more easily point out these patterns of existence, and over time, when I say the funk, you will instantly know or closer understand that I mean rather than need to have or typed all of this information. It will be as easy as smelling cookies and knowing that cookies are being baked. Does that make sense? If my theory is true, then you now further understand what I mean, while I also still not as clear as to how we will or may be able to in the future.
But even that example, uh, even if you smell cookies, you may think that cookies are being baked, but who knows? Maybe it's just someone sprayed like a little spray that smells like cookies or something like that. Uh, it could be misleading until you know what is truth. And so, what I'm proposing is, again, just continue investigating until we know uh, the reality of the truth.
We are absolutely doing that and are expanding and involving and gathering and processing the pinpoints and connections of expansions to us. We are proposing the dissertation and everything leading up to this, and that point and now after is forever influenced as you are too. The funk is expanding, while already having been doing so, as we know it is on, like a light switch, until it is off, or between and beyond. But because we are able to have the conversation, we are undoubtedly existing within beyond. Ben Rigney. Hey Sean, it's possible you might be leading into a manic episode. I know because I had one myself and had similar insights about the meaning of life that are hard for other people to understand. Be sure to get sleep. If you can't get sleep, have a support plan if things start to get surreal.
And this is the next example um, of someone reaching out thinking that it's possible that I might have been leading to a manic episode. And I really appreciate Ben's approach to that rather than just being like, you're having this thing, I'm going to dismiss the things that you're saying because of that. Which is not exactly what people did, but semi along those lines. Um, but additionally, I really enjoyed Ben reaching out because this also, again, it's just further examples on kind of some synchronicities. And it inspired a lot of thought and introspection. But also, I really enjoy the things that Ben says throughout this interaction as well. And I think, and that's one of the reasons why I left this part in the treatise, because there are going to be people who might be experiencing similar moments, whether manic or not, and how to kind of handle that. The extreme being like people going through like a Kundalini awakening right now, just kind of like as we discussed with one of our readers, Veronica, is experiencing a Kundalini awakening, and the importance of rest and everything.
Sean, I know what you mean. This thought has also crossed my mind, and I'm aware that by proposing this theory of such a large amount of abstract data, that others would also believe it to appear to be so. You are reaching out to me to show me you care, and that means a lot to me. And I would like to assure you that even though it may seem or feel you as a form of mania or oddness, that these ideas should still be proposed to others. Considering how the world once thought Socrates to be crazy and sentenced him to drink hemlock, by me proposing this theory, I am being judged or sentenced, and that is okay to me with all this study of life that is knowingly and common pattern of reacting to interpreting the abstract ideas of our realities. Currently, I feel quite healthy and level-headed. I know it may seem to some that the passion I am currently expressing to potentially be manic, and it is in a way manic that is greatly excites me, that the information I've been applying my study towards has continued to point as true from the moments I shared them with the internet and the world, and that thought it can appear manic or be hard to understand. I am becoming more and more able to communicate this information to others. Every action has a reaction, and I'm still willing and wanting to present this information. And these ideas I've collected, even if it means I'll be called crazy or manic or any description, whether I am or not. You connected with my idea and reached back to me, thus confirming many past philosophical theories. And now, using technology and the internet, you're connecting to me from whatever location in space and time you once were and also now are. We are providing for each other through connection. Much love for reaching out and checking on me. Our existence is significant and your advice is comforting. It is indeed very real and very surreal, but I have a mentally strong and healthy control at the moment, even though it could be interpreted as not. And when I began to write my dissertation, all these patterns within the funk I have been expressing told me all this would happen. And it has been our entire lives, and it is indeed crazy, but also super comforting. And I am now increasingly sharing that collection of data I have been researching of life and other realities with those who are interested or not. Some will connect to it, some won't, but all the events leading up to the moment have in a way told, translated, broadcasted to me that I would eventually do it, and I am doing it now. And we are now observing the results of that event. We are studying and observing how life reveals itself to each of us, and everything. Let me start that over. Observing how life reveals itself to each of us, and everything, how to do or do not, and the effect it has on each other and everything that makes sense.
And again, here I say told in parenthesis or translated broadcasted. Again, it was just this understanding. Uh, it wasn't this like voice speaking to my head or anything. It was just my own understanding of the thoughts and ideas that we're formulating at the time. Uh, just understanding that I was going to do this and that people were going to share their opinions and judge it in ways like this of just like reaching out, challenging it, uh, challenging my ego, you know. Uh, but that I should humble myself and not be afraid.
Ben Rigney. Trust me, I don't think you're crazy. If you feel like your brain is firing at 100% lately, you're doing the right thing by writing your thoughts down. I recommend that you target audience primarily be your future self who might forget a lot of the context you're currently feeling. Write as though you're talking to a version of yourself that doesn't understand what you're saying. Try to get less ambiguous and more specific. Write some parables to demonstrate your points. If you want to follow the groove of the old Greeks, I like Plato's allegory of the cave. You're out of the cave and you are seeing things other people can't. As you return and try to explain what you've seen to people, they won't understand for not fault of their own, for better or worse. You won't be in the funk forever, and your memory can't possibly hold on to all that reference and patterns you're seeing. Can't possibly hold on to all the reference and patterns you're seeing right now. Take a second to slow down and document with your future self, who's no longer in the funk, as the target audience.
And so I love this suggestion because this is what I was doing already. But I love that he's like, you know, I love that he states it so that you could read it as well, so that you can experience this, so that if you're ever in this event of like you have an idea or something like that, write it down, explain it to your future self, so that your future self, when they go back to it, be like, oh yeah, and then you can have further thought from there, and then you can expand it, and now you have a book or a movie or some other concept that you've made or created, uh, where you're talking, where again, like you're basically sharing the information with the future, knowing that eventually you might go back to it or not. But when you go back to it, you would hope that you would semi understand it. Uh, and so try to make it as understandable as possible. Use examples and everything. Uh, Again, this is really good advice. And so I'm glad it's here because, again, if you're experiencing something like this, uh, you know, or even if you're not, even if just when ideas and stuff come to you, take a moment. Open up a note in your phone, write it down or something like that. Or else you're just going to move on and forget it, which also is fine. It depends on whether if you want to go back to that moment or not. Or we even talk about it earlier in the treatise. If you don't write down an idea and you try to go back to it later and you can't remember it, then you're only going to be able to kind of remember a simulated version of that. Like, uh, you won't be able to remember exactly what it was, but you'll be able to kind of replicate it. Um, so yeah, let's continue.
Funk is not simply an episode.
This is me responding to that, but later in the future. This is an insert.
So for a target audience, it is beyond quantumly impossible to not be a part of the funk, as it is everything including, nothing beyond an infinite hierarchy. He is correct, however, that the document has a target audience, whoever that may be. While I also understand Ben was alluding to his assumption to whichever state he believed me to be in, whatever state you're in is still part of funk.
Because again, Ben is suggesting here you won't be in the funk forever, and your memory can't possibly hold on to all the references and patterns you're seeing right now. Take a second to slow down and document with your future self, who's no longer in the funk, as the target audience. you will always be in the funk. You can never not be in the funk. But in that same sense, this could also totally mean your physical body, your mind, your ability to share information and everything won't be as active as it currently is, right? And so you can't possibly hold on to all of you and everything. And so there's some things that you have to save outside of yourself and share it so that when you're not here, then you are still continued in some form forever who the target audience of your continued information is or is not.
So that was kind of just like an insert of like his thought of like what the conversation was. I don't really know how to break that up in the thing, but
You're doing a
next
great
time
job.
I see that, I'll just say the same thing. So, moving on. This doesn't mean you
This has been saying this sentence.
can't talk to other people, but especially focus your efforts on documenting for yourself.
And then another insert.
May 24th, 2024. I still find it extremely interesting how Ben and Susan were in their own ways describing and attributing to what I was and am describing, while at the same time still seemingly confused about my presentation. This is a great example to you, reader, on how funk puts people, things into our lives to give us more examples, scenarios, perspectives on how to understand and translate its happenings. You are able to understand to a much better degree the information I am presenting because you are viewing it in a much more evolved presentation and are also able to see others explained, interpreted as well from other perspectives. Along the lines of what Susan mentioned, this is my personal perspective of a collection of perspectives, and along the lines of what Ben suggested, here I am, the future self, expanding from our yaws as a result of presenting this document to the target audience.
This goes back to Ben.
One last rule I strongly suggest is to have a bedtime where you put your phone and computer away in another room. Whatever amazing thoughts you have, they can wait. Don't touch the phone unless it's to call someone for support. If you can't sleep, spend the night at a family's place and go enjoy your brain. This is back to the conversation. Those were, like I said, was like his thoughts on the conversation they were having.
But again, I didn't have this problem of not being able to sleep or having too much thoughts and everything. It's just a normal life and every day. But except I was doing as he first suggested, sharing all this information, writing these thoughts down for the future me, but also giving the people around me kind of a live feed into that process because I thought that that would be important to show this process as it evolves and everything.
For the present time and then for the future, basically. Sean, you get it. Ben, oh boy, do I. Sean, and all of that is exactly what you and I are attempting to do. Now, I'm presenting the proofs to others through my dissertation, and it becoming easier and easier while still always level of difficult to communicate with myself, others, in the future. And if I am unable to, I will attempt to translate it through someone else or even a computer program or whatever it is able to next.
And here we are now translating it through all the people that I hired, but also in the TLDR series, a computer program. And then we'll see what happens after that, whatever is next.
Ben, feel free to send it to me, but do it in an email so it's all in one place and not scattered. He left his email, benjaminrigney@gmail.com. Sean, this is how it's currently best presentable. Will do, and please keep in mind that it's currently subjectively and objectively long. This data and thought adds up exponentially until able to be described or summarized with lesser words or thoughts, but there are books longer than it and I know we are humans are capable of reading books that are much longer than it is now. So good luck and enjoy sending now.
And at the time, I think it was only like 90 something pages or so. Uh, and now it's 308 or 302 for the fifth edition.
Uh,
And Ben,
December 10th, 2019.
this is the next day.
Ben. When did you begin the Word document? Sean. A few days ago. I can give you closer information later when I get back home. Ben. While your brain is on a roll, be careful of driving. You've been doing a lot of writing and thinking at a rapid pace, and fatigue might kick in at a bad time. Also, make sure you don't end up by yourself for too long at a time this coming week. If you can spend the week at a family member's house while you focus on writing and thinking, I strongly recommend it. Sean.
And again, I appreciate Ben reaching out and sharing his care, but there wasn't a moment where uh, that I felt ever needing that and everything, or that I felt overwhelmed, or again, even in a manic episode. It was just passion. It's just like, let's say any writer of any subject, like eventually you just get in these flow states where like, oh, you have this idea coming to you. I'm going to sit at the typewriter and I'm going to type for who knows how long, you know. Now I definitely was not to the point where like I'm just going to sit here and type for days and days and days and days. I still had my life going on. I still had improv. I still was doing shows. I was still sleeping and resting, and working. It was just a normal life. I was just very passionate and getting all this information out.
Thanks again, Ben. You're helping and have helped me and everyone after this point in time to help understand how important it is to rest and not to drive or process too much information while driving.
And again, that is why I may not have been experiencing the level that Ben was trying to care for, but maybe you are. Maybe you are someone that you know is. And so this is good advice for them or yourself.
By coincidence, at this moment, I was driving on my way home from improv, and I was thinking about my dissertation as well as how I'm going to respond to you about this. And I was pulled over for going 45 and 35 because I was so focused in thought and distracted.
And so, uh, while Ben does say, be careful of, while your brain is on roll, be careful of driving, it wasn't fatigue that got me. It was just being distracted in thought itself. Uh, and so, yeah, I was going 45 and 35, and you'll hear what happens.
Rest and process and Rest and process and don't drive distracted. I was simply distracted by thinking, as we all can be at some point. I was thinking too much, and now I'm a result of that, and seeing that and experiencing the consequence of. Hopefully, I don't get a ticket, but probably will. We shall see. I got a warning, and she was so nice and kind, and we chatted for a sec about what happened, and she understood. But you have further increased my and future our awareness that rest is important to process and to dream. Eating is important because it's important to digest information, even though some of that information has the capacity to harm us or help us. Reality has to experience that harm in order to learn from it. It is important to hear as that is further how you listen and can potentially feel information. It is important to touch because that is how you reach, feel, and experience information. And it's important to see because that is how you can investigate and observe it. Instinct has become a live prediction of all by the influence of the past presented to itself, and now the future. What do you think? Also, I do a lot of improv and very socially active, as you probably know me to be.
In fact, I was coming home from improv uh, when, and I was like right down the street, like right in the last like 5 minute stretch. Um, I like just turned onto the last street that I'd really need to be on, and I was just going 45, not really thinking, you know. And that area always has cops, speed traps all the time. And I just, you know, was in the zone thinking about what I was gonna just thinking about all these thoughts and everything, trying to process and all that jazz. Uh, and suddenly, got pulled over, and I was like, oh, dang it, But I still was in good spirits and intentions, and I just explained what happened and just, sorry, I was just in my head thinking about all of this that was happening and everything. Uh, and they were just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna give you a warning, drive safe and everything. I don't remember the exact uh, how everything unfolded, but that was basically it. They were very kind, and we just chatted a little bit about life in the universe, like for a very brief second. Uh, and then I remember they had a body cam on, and I pointed in the body cam, and I was like, if any of you are watching out there, and then I gave a link to like follow all my shit. And so I hope that is out there somewhere. Okay, continue.
This is another insert, March 19th, 2023. Another example of someone suggesting I have a manic episode, though he was under the false assumption that I may have been. Still feel Ben gave good advice and it was helpful. I was absolutely digesting a lot of information, and I can see how my presentation possibly appeared to others as manic, but I am comfortable and confident in saying I was not in a manic episode or have experienced one. I just care about collecting, reassessing, and passing on this information as life. Project has, as any other philosopher would care about their life's work. May 24th, 2024. I'd also like to point out how Ben also discussed the situation to be like Plato's allegory of the cave, and that I was perhaps seeing outside of the cave, as I mentioned before. And as Plato mentioned, when you are this person, after you return to the cave, the people are going to think something is wrong with you. How do you explain the sun to someone who's never seen it before and thinks that something is wrong with you? Kindle. I hope you're okay, Sean. All these posts seem very manic. I'm just gonna put a quick thing in there. It's funny how, like, he's done said this. When you start putting your the whole thing is funk, but when you start representing your soul out to others and presenting it to others, and then how they like judge you and things like that, it's just funny how you know, or with this information, how all of them are just presumed to be manic as opposed to like anything else outside of like maybe a more positive outlook. Just because you're having thoughts and like deeper thoughts than like, oh, should I eat McDonald's? But anyways, continue. So we'll just start back over. Kindle. I hope you're okay, Sean. All these posts seem very manic. Sean Pilleber. Um, as the past and our study of culture predicted, it would be viewed as. But I just had a excuse me, I burped. But I just had a linked discussion with three others. One of them to be a lovely older gentleman with Asperger's, to so far to their perspective confirm to understand that I am saying to their capabilities of. I understand it seems manic as it is a lot of information to interpret and to take in, and learn how to express and or share more easily. It can also seem manic by how exciting I seemingly am about it, because I never known something to be sure in my life. Though still not knowingly of, and the three other people you will soon be able to hear in the recording of this conversation is further proof of my currently 7-year, but really 29 and more study. And they felt and understand it as well, which is exciting and promising. You see where? So he brought up the manic thing again, and that's what I'm saying. He's like, instead of manic, why couldn't they just be like, he's passionate? So like when they went to see, because all judging is not bad, but when they like judge them negative, they could have judged them positively and said like this is passion, because I kind of think this is passion because I'm an artist, so like I kind of understand where you're coming from, especially when you've devoted as much time as you have. It may seem to the outside that it's one thing, but you know for sure, like, hey, it ain't that, bro. It's this, and like, you know. But let's continue.
But I don't necessarily think that they're judging negatively, uh, because I think that these two people were reaching out in forms of care, and so it was an attempt of positivity. But additionally, what I felt though, especially from Kindle, was that like no matter what I was saying at this point, she just like kind of was like, "No, I don't understand what you're saying." And it's like, okay, well, let me try again, and let me break it down a little bit more. Are you understanding now? No, I still understand you. I hope you're okay. Um, and that kind of was a little disappointing and was a little upsetting because it's like I'm literally sitting here attempting to be understood, and you're over there just being like, I don't understand you. I don't understand you. I don't understand you. Okay, well then let's continue until maybe you can understand me. Why are you just going to walk away without understanding? Are you just like, how helpful is that? Um, and so again, I don't think that was inherently negative, uh, but it definitely wasn't because what's weird about that is like it was a level of care to be like, hey, I think I'm going to suggest that you may be doing these things because I care about you, but then I don't care enough about you to continue this conversation, and so that's a little weird.
So I assure you that everything is indeed fine, and I am well, and have really never felt better. You know how you feel when everything is coming up roses or Millhouse? It feels pretty giddy. When I upload the recording, if you choose to listen to it, you will understand your perception of almost exactly what I'm explaining and describing in a 20-minute period. You will potentially then feel that feeling too, unless you're adamantly unwilling to do so or personally opposed to it, to the point you choose to not understand it, or even simply not to the point of ability of understanding it. I predict it, and if I am correct or not, if you ever listen to it or investigate further understanding, you will eventually relay back to me, or not, that you understand or not, and that you feel it or feel it to be or not. And any and all of those will and will not happen. But I predict in your own way you will eventually further feel the funk and the understanding of it, and that you are doing so now. I see that you care deeply enough about me to reach out and check in on my well-being, and that means a lot to me. And that I love you for doing it, as it is further proves my study, and you are now advancing that information. You're already feeling you're already feeling your reaction to the funk, and it seemingly currently has your interest, even if you became uninterested. Tuesday.
I'm gonna go back to that thought of uh, of caring and caring enough because like I saw these people caring, right, but they only engaged in that caring for a limited amount of time, which I understand because rest is important. uh, you do have to step in and out of these moments, depending on your abilities and depending on your care and everything. um, but I see that pattern in a lot of things. uh, and I also think that like it falls into, if we had, again, in the argument of the selfish and the selfless, it's easier to take care of others when you yourself are already taken care of. When the selfish needs are already met, you then can expand to the selfless if you are able to escape the selfish, right? Um, but then it falls into, now that you're engaging with the selfless, how long do you do that for, and when do you return back to the selfish? I'm hoping that makes sense more, because like what I mean is like, when we have the resources to care for each other, we can do so more deeply. Um, Kind of like with homeless people, right? Like, let's use someone who's homeless, for example, or underprivileged, right? Or better words for homeless. Uh, you don't just go out and adopt a homeless person and be like, oh, well, I'm going to take care of you now, right? Because now they are your responsibility. And for most people, by doing that, they don't have that power of responsibility. They can take care of themselves and their family, but now you're taking care of another person entirely. Um, and you may not want to do that forever. Now, if you have the resources, maybe you're able to do that. Maybe you're able to take care of this person, change their life, until they can, once again, their selfish needs are taken care of, and they can return the favor to the selfless. Um, but for most people, I think there's this like kind of surface level, like, I do care and I want to care, but I also am not able to give you the fullest care that you deserve or that you need. And so, sorry, uh, here's $1. I care, but that's all I can do. So see you later. Uh, wish you luck, because that's really like all you can kind of do in that scenario. Um, you could give that person your entire life, uh, and that's kind of what like some religions even suggest, is like, give up your material possessions to people who do need them, but sometimes you also need them. Um, and so I think that thought needs to be explored a little bit more, and that question. And I'm sure that there are some decent talks about that beyond through some philosophers and other things. But that's just a thought. All right, let's continue.
December 10th, 2019. I am now, by request, sending this dissertation to Daniel Holiday. Hello, past, present, and future Daniel.
To finish that last thought that I was just going on, true pairability would be able to help each other. And if you aren't able to help someone, then you can reach out to someone who is. You would have that pairability. Um, so just that.
Welcome again to the Funk, and you too, future reader.
I actually ran into Daniel recently, uh, out of the blue. Uh, so that was nice. Hello, Daniel, if you're watching this.
Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. Sean, if anyone or anything has ever told you that you are special on that one day, you would be significant. You would be a significant success as yourself. I can now, with research of time and data collection, tell you that it is an arguably truth. You are special and significant. And if nothing ever told you that in the past, then I just did, and I am also able to give you further proof if you are denying what I am saying to be true. Try me. Ask me how you are special and significant, or tell me if you believe yourself to be or not so. And if you want to know how I now know all this and would like to look at the research of the data presented behind it, it is in my dissertation of the funk, and also within my knowledge how to further prove it to be so to you and to others. Love you. Vandy Enzor. Reflection. If you dislike a photograph of yourself, doesn't mean that you dislike a part of yourself. Sean. Great question. I think it does and it doesn't. It does because you indeed had that feeling of dislike, but it also doesn't because you will over time learn to love yourself more and more until that previous dislike becomes memory and you can like and enjoy unless you don't. The thought of a photograph leads me to the thought of a videograph and how you can now graph pictures, portraits, and frames of time through video, and not only as previously able, only through a single frame of photo reference. Video is a collection of photos over time placed frame after frame until it is 29 minutes later, or a Googleplex of years. Then there's a link that'll be in the description. Uh, Tuesday, December 10th, Alicia Whitmire. This whole thing has had my interest, Sean, because it's beginning to make a lot of sense, isn't it? For others to understand, and for how my understanding, would you mind explaining where your interest is coming from and what makes you interested in what I'm saying? Alicia, it is an interesting premise. What makes you say I'm special? How does funk play into it? Sean.
That concludes page 210, but I guess we're continuing into 211.
One, you're special because I said above, I have just said it to be, and now here a second time. Two, you're special because you exist. I know you exist. Your parents know you exist. Everyone reading this now knows you exist, and that is special. Three, you are special because you are a part of me and us. You are an influence in my gathering information and on how the funk works, and your interest proves my theory to be continuously an effort in expanding as it is now, as it now is through your reader. 4, you create and are creative, and that is special. 5, that we know that you are special and influence upon the funk will continue to grow and expand in an exponential amount until it loops back within itself and starts again. You will always in time be you, and given enough time you will become you again in every way and form. Isn't that special? 6, you are special. Do you need further proof? Or does that make sense and now prove to be more special than you previously thought yourself to be? Alicia Whitmire. Makes sense. I'll keep reading your posts.
And even still, after 6 examples of explaining why someone is special, I guarantee that there's someone out there who's going to be like, that's not special. And so that kind of is a pure disagreement, a defeater of knowledge. It is subjective. What is special for some may not be special for others. But I still think it's special. And so it doesn't dismiss it. It is still semi-special.
Okay.
All right, and that concludes the reading. And so let us now see what Kevin has to say about his thoughts on these pages.
So that's going to be the end of my pages to read. Just a recap of what I read. So basically started off as like understanding that we are computers basically, and so I've always had this theory. I don't really like dabble into like other people's perspectives, such as like philosophical ones all the time, but I've always had this theory like our mind, our brain is a computer, and we have a computer to be able to store what is here onto there. And sometimes you need more gigs, terabytes, and like that if you're processing a lot of information. So that's just the storage idea I had about the brain. And I'm sure that's already a thing because computers and stuff already exist. So someone had that thought already. So that's part of the funk where I'm just now getting in line to what the funk has already got into. So I'm on that thought wave or thought process. I just haven't got to the further one because someone has already thought of that, but I soon could get to that kind of thing. I just got to meet maybe the right person or experience the right thing. And I think that's kind of what he's like talking about.
You're in process.
And
You're
then we
processing.
like go on a little further more about the manic thing, and I kind of touched up it a little bit, but I just kind of, I'm not one to dabble with negative words a lot. I'm not also, oblivious to negativity, but I think, judging someone as manic can be a little stretch, especially if you're not like, professional at it. But like I would probably use more words like passion, you know, uh, because like I said, I'm an artist. So when I'm creating and manifesting my soul out onto mediums, it can be very exhausting mentally. I created. Let me tell you, I created for like 7 years straight, just like nonstop, 325 days, just boom, 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 boom. And I've now in this period of time where I am just exhausted, fatigued mentally. And then the thought of like creating art almost to the point just like sickens me. And I'm just like, it's kind of, I think,
I would allegedly suggest that he's in the resting stage, or maybe he's done. But again, that's you're resting. He put all these things. He did all these things, and now it's time to rest. Uh, how I can similarly relate to that is like when I first picked up ukulele, like I couldn't put it down. I carried it around with me for years, and I played it over and over and over again. And then one day, I was just like kind of done with it. I had made all these songs. I had played all these shows, and then I was just like, it's time to move to whatever's next. And I did. And then I picked up the bass guitar later, and then Who'da Thunk was born, and now I'm within that. And even the last album, This Is It, I kind of had these feelings of like, I think this is kind of it for a while. But even with that, a couple months ago, I was driving home in the car and I had an idea. And so I came home, I picked up my uke, and I'm like nine songs deep into the next album of Who'da Thunk. But it's going to be a returning to the roots of the ukulele. Um, and sometimes you just need to rest before you can reach those points again. Sometimes you do so much art and everything. Another example for me is draw book. I used to draw and draw book all the time, and now I don't really draw as much anymore because again, I felt that I shared what I needed to share, and if more comes, then more will come eventually. But uh, I'm in that resting stage, just as Kevin is in his resting stage.
I'm interpreting that as like it it didn't go as far as I thought it would, and so it feels like a weight or a burden on me. But like
Mm.
it's my it's my passion inside the funk, and I think trying to separate myself from it is causing such a resistance where like I can't really move forward because I'm trying to neglect it so bad, and it's like I need to nurture it for me to get back on the path to move forward, and I'm just now realizing that too. And this actually helps bring that into more of a perspective too. So that's kind of neat.
I'm glad I can inspire. And to relate onto what he's saying of like, you feel like you've gotten away from it and you feel this guilt for kind of putting it down, putting it to rest and stuff. But uh, you'll return when you're ready. That's kind of, and I explained it, I think, a couple times through these readings and these commentary, that's kind of when I rest from funk, when I rest from the treatise, like I'll give like a few months uh, where like I won't touch it. I'll live my life and I'll do things, and yes, funk activity will happen, and I'll write notes in my phone and everything, but I won't really like expand the treatise. I won't really edit it and everything. I'll take some time off, but it'll get to a point where in the back of my mind, it's like, all right, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. And I do feel this like weird guilt, like it. I don't know how to explain it, of just like it's time to return, it's time to share that information, because if you don't and something happens, then that's what it's going to be forever. Like if you're gone, if I die or something like that, then this is what it's going to be, and instead of that further evolved version. And then I don't, by coincidence or not, that's usually when like stuff starts happening in my life where like things start disconnecting, like or like life just feels slower. I don't really know how to describe it. Uh, it's not like some would say like depression, right? But it's not depression. Um, it's just this like this I guess desire to get back on the train, get back on this moving vehicle. Like you've been in a city for so long, you've seen the city, and now the next city is calling, or your home is calling, right? And so it's like, okay, it's time to move on. You've spent your time, your rest, and now you're ready to get back to work. Uh, Maybe there's a word for that feeling, and if not, maybe it'll come to me.
But I also been dealing with a lot of other variables that kind of also, I mean, we say variables, but we could say excuses as well.
Hmm.
But I'm going to say variables because they have been really, um, what's something when it's like on road and you get bumped off the road? uh, Rearing, basically. And I mean, I'll eventually get back to it. It's just taking some time. But we can go back to Sean and his theories or his philosophical theories about what it's like. I also believe I was talking about being negative, right? But I'm more on the perspective of where he's telling this person that she's special, which she's special, but she's not special, you know. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow because when you've grown up and you've been told over and over again that you're special, people celebrate your birthdays and all that. When you have that perspective, having your birthday celebrated and people calling in, people giving you gifts, all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have that, you will believe that it's not as special as you may think. And
Mm.
even when you're getting those gifts, you can wake up one day and realize like I'm not as special as I thought I was because we always overcompensate what special means, you know.
And that's kind of a privilege in a way. So, like, to use your example, like, let's say your birthday is celebrated every year of your life until one day you get to college or beyond and no one celebrates your birthday. That might be devastating to you. Um, that doesn't dismiss your specialness, right? But the privilege of others making you feel special is gone at that moment. But that's, in a way, argumentatively, a special moment for you. It's a learning moment, a humbling moment. Um, and that's, again, debatably uh, special.
And when you sit back, and because I'm also an observer of myself, so when you sit back and you observe the funk or the world or life, you just start to realize specially, how special, how insignificantly special you actually are. And I don't mean to say that as like a negative connotation towards life.
I get
It's
what you mean.
just like if I go outside right now, there's like 20 people outside walking around doing something, and like I don't have to say anything to them, and they don't have to say anything to me, and I just seen them for a second, you know, and so like a second in time is just insignificant, although it might be special, you know, because a bird could have swooped down and pecked him in the eye or something like, whoa, but it wasn't.
But it was still special because of its happening, of its ability of happening. Uh, Imagine you couldn't do that. Uh, you still have that special privilege of the ability of doing, of verbing.
And not to say that the thing they weren't doing wasn't special, you know, they were walking their dog. So in that time in their life, their timeline, it could have been special. But as I say that, I just go to say that I believe you're insignificantly special to the greater scheme of things. For your ego to get through the day to day, then yeah, sure. If you want to be called special, claim to be, then, you know, we may do so.
I think the argument here is uh, the feeding of the ego. Now, if your ego needs to be told you're special and everything, um, or if the ego feels that it's completely insignificant and not special, right? This is completely, entirely different than what I'm kind of saying on that this is special. Not in a way to feed ego, but in a way that, like, what you may feel is insignificant still has immaculate significance of its happening. Again, even an atom on a painting is still incredibly significant to that painting, because if that atom wasn't there, it would be something completely different entirely. It may be one atom's off that we could not perceive, but Funk would be able to perceive that. Funk knows. Um, and just like what I don't have a completely formulated thought on this, but like elements are so uniquely made, combined of like more and less atoms, right? That like just removing one would change the entire element of it. And so that's, if you think that like just because you are one atom in the entire cosmos, you're still a million of atoms, right? And if one of those was different, then your entire element would be different. And that's entirely special. And so the argument that like because the universe is so big, we are insignificant. I think that that's just a downplay on like I don't I don't know. Argumentatively, like there are going to be people who disagree because that's kind of a nihilistic view on reality. And it's entirely okay to be a nihilist, right? But like, I lost my train of thought in my argument. Um, but all of that, just the ability is special. No matter how insignificant you think anything is, because of its ability to verb or do or whatever, that's special. Uh, and not in a you're special kind of way, not in a ego feeding way, in a literal metaphysical way.
And I understand that can help some people gravitate for it. But outside of that, I think it was pretty interesting. I mean, I've had some thoughts like this before too, man. So I would just say keep it going. Uh, I feel like you have something there. When I first
Thanks.
opened this, I thought, "What the hell am I supposed to read?" Because you were like talking about Portal and stuff like that, and I was like, "Okay, so this is probably going to be, you know, I don't know, you know." So I was just like, what did I get myself into? But as I further read it, I'm just like, okay, so you know, you've been having thoughts, you've been putting them down on paper, and you just want to hear what other people have to say about it because you strongly believe in this and strongly believe in what I believe too. So it's kind of nice. And I've also,
And I sorry to pause it there, but I think that that's a great example of how even the abstract can eventually make sense over time. Like he starts in this weird place of where it's just talking about this video game, right? And then it's kind of explaining entered into these things. And he hasn't read the previous 200 pages. He doesn't know the context of this conversation. But when you stick with it and you kind of dive in a little deeper, you begin to make more sense of it. Whether that sense is assumed or uh, translated or interpreted or anything, right? Uh, and so that's why, again, I think it's this. Even as abstract as this information gets, I see all these people resonating, and it just kind of helps me understand that it's going in a right direction until until it isn't or doesn't. Because again, one day I could like turn around and someone uh, with the know-how and knowledge can just shut all this down and be like, "Oh, this is untrue." But in order to get there, this has to happen.
As an artist, because I like the idea where you were talking about how this this PDF or this dissertation is like the connection to other people. And the crazy thing about this connection is like when someone reads it, it'll branch off to someone else because then they will go talk to it. So it's almost like a never ending loop, as you say. So I like that idea. But as an artist, I'm kind of in the same boat. Or, uh, the idea of like networking. So
Yeah,
I like the
yeah,
idea of networking. And I feel like that's just what this is, it's networking.
to a
So
degree.
you created this experience. And so for me, when I create experiences, it's more like a modeling gig or something. So I create the materials, bring them there. I get a bunch of people together from all parts of the city or something. Some people I've never even met before, which I prefer it that way because it's like um, in order to grow, you kind of need to meet different people
Hmm.
because then those people, so then their branches touch other people and things like that. So if I'm, if I'm always, if I'm here and this is my people and I'm always, those are my four branches. And so then these people have branches and then these people have branches. You see how that works? So my branch was only four, but these people have three branches. So then their branches are going to meet people, and then their branches are going to meet people. And so it just kind of continues and continues and continues and continues and continues. And it doesn't necessarily have to be three. This is just an example because. And then sometimes branches can sever. Uh, but with everything, right? So and that's the funny thing when I say branches can sever because connections in general never really go away.
Hmm.
Once you, I'm going to get a little further. So once you have certain experiences with people, especially of the opposite sex, um, such as intercourse and things like that. This is why some people don't understand the idea of intercourse because you're actually like soul bonding and linking to this person that you are low key attached to them for a lifetime. And
It
some
is a
people
deeper
act
connection.
on it, some people don't. Some people are, the way they are, and some people are the way they're not. But that is the intention of intercourse. So,
It's a bond, um, and a deep bond at that, right? Um, but to go back to the branching things and stuff, I cannot remember who it was, but it stuck with me, and I can't remember the exact quote now. But essentially, what they talk about is like, in order to get famous, what you have to do is impress strangers, not your family and friends. Your family and friends are just they're going to support you kind of no matter what, or they're going to not support you because they're your family and friends, and they're going to do the things that they do in their own way, but still kind of be there for you because they're your family and friends. If you truly want to uh, become something huge and big and influential, you have to impress the entire outside of that bubble, because those are going to be the people who, uh, if they come back, are going to have like this kind of fanship. There's better words for it. I wish I could remember the exact quote, but that's kind of along the lines of.
that's just kind of like a segue to it on how you have certain types of connections and, uh, and how some connections are lasting. But I do believe, it could just, with the whole theory of this creation was given and now it's expanding and it expands only by others. So I like that idea a lot. But
Thanks.
yeah, so I mean, I think that's just my wrap up of the whole idea of the funk. Appreciate the read, appreciate the opportunity, and as you are now, present and future and past, Mr. Sean, stay true to you, brother, and
You as well, man.
keep it going. Kevin Burnett out.
And that is Kevin's thoughts and readings of the treatise. Once again, Kevin, thank you very much for reading these pages and sharing your thoughts. And to you, the reader, listener, watcher, whoever you are, thank you for being here, for doing what you do, in whatever ways you do it. I love you. In the case I don't see you again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. As always, the funk provides. And so, until next time, peace. Okay, peace.